Greetings, this is Dr. Joe Green, head pastor of St. Paul's Missionary Baptist Church located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, also the founder of the 2019 movement, and I want to share a couple of thoughts with you. I was just listening not long ago that, there was a person who was really going on and on to be against the death penalty. And for several reasons. And I actually saw a movie recently called Mercy with Jamie Foxx is in it and Michael B. Jordan. And I thought it was a phenomenal movie if you get a chance to go see it. Just Mercy is a story, based on a true story about a African American gentleman who lived in the South and who got falsely accused of a murder and was on death row. And so while he was on death row, this African American attorney from Harvard started an organization, and he started to, work with death row inmates. And as he found out his story, found as many inaccuracies. And, as an African American male, we know historically that has been the case many times. What the core of the story was, and I'm kind of going off track, but I just, since I mentioned the movie, I need to explain it a little bit. The core of the story, the core of the story is that it was in a town, a teenage girl, white young lady, got killed, murdered, and they couldn't find the person who did it, so they pinned it on this innocent black man. Now, in the South, if you guys know from a historical standpoint, it has happened a lot, especially this whole dynamic with a white woman and a black male. It is historically a sore spot for many of us in the African American community. You have the story of Emmett Till, and the story of Emmett Till was a 15-year-old young man in the South who was accused of whistling at a white woman, and they beat him severely and killed him. There's in Georgia, LaGrange, Georgia, there's a story of Austin Calloway. There was a young man who got accused of assaulting a white woman, and how he got accused was that, this was over 70 years ago, that he was walking down the street and he didn't give up the sidewalk for the young lady. And so these are things that are historical. During the time of Jim Crow and various dark times in our history, there was a lot of instances where black males were accused falsely of things, especially in regards to white women, and they were actually murdered, or lynched or something along those lines. There's a movie, Birth of the Nation, when you get a chance, and then I promise you I'll get back on topic. There's a movie called Birth of a Nation. It was made by D.W. Griffith. It's in the early 1900s. It was made and was called American Classic. D.W. Griffith is considered one of the great people in the film industry. And for a while in Hollywood, the Lifetime Achievement Award for directors was called the D.W. Griffith Award. So anyway, his movie Birth of a Nation is about the founding of the Ku Klux Klan. And basically the Ku Klux Klan was the military arm of the segregated South Democratic Party. And it was formed primarily to protect the innocence of white women from black men. And so, you can look this up yourself, but that's what Birth of a Nation is about. So there's a long history of that. But anyway, I digress. So this story is about the same story. A young white lady gets killed, and they couldn't find the killer, so they pinned it on a black man. And the district attorney, I don't want to give up the plot too much if you haven't seen it already. The district attorney almost feels obligated to give him somebody, right? So there's such an outcry in the town. Once they identified a black male as the culprit, then it was almost like they had to kill him because there was such an outrage in the town. And so even though there was some discrepancies in the evidence, and so anyway, that's what this movie is about. And then at the end, they talk about this organization that the gentleman the attorney that the movie's about started. And I think it's a great work. I want to say that just for the record, it's a great work. Anytime you can dedicate your life, and this gentleman graduated from Harvard Law School, so I'm sure he had a lot of different opportunities, but he chose to do this work to help inmates on death row. Because they found out that, and this is the Department of Justice and other things, especially when they had the implementation now of DNA evidence, that they found out that there was a lot of people that had been on death row that were falsely accused, and they could prove because of evidence that they didn't commit the crime that they were being accused of. So with that being said, now the reaction to many people is that they are appalled, or they are against, or they are, calling for the dismantling of the death penalty in America. Now, for the record, it's a worthy cause in the sense that if you don't have 100% evidence that the person killed or committed murder, because I'm pretty sure that the only reason you get death is first degree murder. So you had to intentionally kill someone, and especially if it's a police officer, you get put on death row. And I don't think, and I'll have to double check that, but I don't think that there's any other crime that really puts people on death row. But anyway, they found that there is a pretty good amount of people that were on death row that didn't commit the crime. And so because of that, to err on the side of, making sure that an innocent person doesn't get murdered. And many people would believe if one innocent person got murdered, it's worth even some people that are guilty that may slip through the cracks and they may avoid the death penalty. So that's a belief of some people. So anyway, but there are people that there's an outcry of people that are just so against the death penalty and think it's inhumane and barbaric and that it should never occur. But I thought it was interesting because I saw a group of people, especially liberals, that were so much against the death penalty, but yet they were pro-choice. Now, if you think it's barbaric to kill an adult who is accused of murder, then how much greater should you believe it's barbaric to kill an innocent unborn child? Now, I wanted to tie that in together because the implication is that this death row inmate that you are fighting for their right to live and not to be executed is that you are declaring or believing that there's a possibility that that person is innocent of what they are being accused of. And so we in America, liberals especially, are really blowing the trumpet of, innocent lives shouldn't be taken. You shouldn't murder the innocent. So if that's the case, how much greater should that person who would say that they don't want to risk an innocent life being taken, even if it means that there may be some guilty people that avoid the death penalty, then what about the baby in the womb? What about the unborn child? We know 100% that all of them are innocent because they haven't done anything. They haven't hurt anyone. They're not even accused of doing anything bad to anyone. And so I think that it's important for us to think about that for a second. That's a really interesting thought that there's a possibility that someone is on death row for being accused of murder, that they didn't do it. And so we have an outrage of, getting rid of the death penalty. But yet many of those people, and I've talked to some of them personally, are pro-choice, or they're not passionate about defending the lives of the innocent child in the womb. And I believe that that's part of there's a couple different reasons, but the main reason, one of the reasons, is because of media manipulation. So the media has painted the picture of what it means of the death penalty, right? But the media also has painted the picture of why you should be pro-choice. And people will cite many different instances where a woman, it's so difficult for her to make the choice or whatever. And I'm not saying people make the choice lightly. Some people do, but not everybody makes the choice lightly of deciding to end the life of their child or through abortion. But yet that doesn't make that has nothing to do with whether or not it's right or it's wrong, just because a person made a hard choice to do it, any more than if I killed someone, right, and it was a difficult decision, but I ended up killing them. The merits of whether or not it was that it should have or should not have happened has to take precedence over it. So based on that, when we think about the fact that many people are pro-choice, even those who don't agree with abortion, but the core of the argument should be whether or not that is a human life in the mother's womb, which science will tell you without a shadow of a doubt that's a human life. It's its own entity. And very soon after, and I've heard maybe a week or two after the egg is fertilized, that child has a heartbeat. We know that at the moment of conception, there's no such thing as a fertilized egg. which, contrary to popular opinion, there's no such thing as a fertilized egg. The nanosecond that sperm hits the egg, it becomes a different entity. It's called a zygote, and the zygote has all the DNA information of a human being. They have, 34 chromosomes. 68 chromosomes, 34 from the mother, 34 from the father. And that is what every human being has. All the information, the DNA evidence is its own entity at the moment of conception, which means it's a life at that point. It's a person. And so then it begins to develop. So, inherently, if that is the case, then we as a society are to protect that life. And just like a person on death row, there's people that are defending them because they say that person doesn't have a voice anymore. So they are, speaking on behalf of the voiceless. And so because of that, again, this unborn child is also voiceless and has no voice and can't speak for itself. So as a society, we say that we should fight for the innocent, that we should defend the innocent and fight for those who don't have the power to fight for themselves. And so because of that, I think this is a very important topic for us to discuss, because how do we think that if God believes that baby is a life and he hates hands that shed innocent blood, how much do we think that we can continue to, kill the unborn at an alarming rate, but not at some point in time face the judgment of God? So anyway, let's go to Romans chapter 1. And to me, when we look at these things, and I'll talk about another thing, some more things pertaining to this, I always talk about the animal rights activists or the people that are, right now there's people that are very much in the, climate change. They're fighting for climate change. And many people back in the days, they had the Green Party or Green Day, where they were fighting for the planet. Not cutting down trees, saving the rainforest, and all those type of things. And, it's interesting that a lot of them that I talk to, because it's a rather liberal viewpoint, they're pro-choice. And so how is it that you are so passionate about trying to save a tree or planet, or even animal rights activists, that they'll do anything? They think it's horrible that you would do anything to harm an animal or to, it's disrespectful in order to pollute or to cut down trees or to damage the planet, but yet you're okay with shedding innocent blood through abortion. But in Romans chapter 1, it talks about that, and it defines that as a time when people turn away from God. And you guys hear me talk about Romans chapter 1 a lot. I think Romans chapter 1 is one of the most important chapters in the Bible, especially as it pertains to this day and age that we live in. It talks about in verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Now, of course, verse 18, it says that they know what the truth is, but instead of truth, they believe that that's unrighteousness. And it says, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed unto them, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly being understood by the things that are made, even the eternal power of the Godhead, so that men are without excuse. So it's saying all creation, the orderliness of creation, all the design, the intentionality, and the purpose of creation demonstrates that there is a God. So, but anyway, it is the verse that I really wanted to get into. It reads in verse 22, professing themselves to be wise, they became as fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into the image made like unto corruptible man, and to birds, four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore God gave them up to uncleanliness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. Verse 25, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. And so basically what it's saying is that because they rejected God and didn't acknowledge him as God, and they were not grateful to God for what was there, that God turns them over to a reprobate mind, or turns them over. They become wise in their own minds, but God says that they're like fools, and they begin to worship the creature more than the Creator. So they begin to worship the created being, the created entity, more than the one who created them. And I think that's so important, because when we understand that the baby in the womb is one of the purest forms of God's created order, First of all, in Genesis, it talks about the fact that he created male and female, right? And the two shall become one flesh. And so the image of God and the likeness of God, not only is male and female coming together in the spirit and the bond of unity, because that is God's nature, is unity, but also they are participating in the creative nature of God, which means they are creating another life. They are creating another life, and God is creator, right? We recognize and we are introduced to God as creator in Genesis 1, right? So Genesis 1 and 2, it talks about the image and likeness of God. God created male and female, the two shall become one flesh. And then this other thing happens. The fire of God is sparked, and this other human life is now starting to grow inside a woman, right? That sexual energy that God created for the purposes of creation and for procreation, right, is one of the most important things that we understand, the very image of God. And so you think about the fact that instead of acknowledging that, instead of acknowledging how awesome that is and how important it is for us to continue as a species, as humans, we began to worship the created being or the creature. We began to worship the planet and the environment. We begin to worship animals, and we begin to worship other things while ignoring the great miraculous act of creating another human life. I heard a person talk about it one time. This person was in a delivery room when a person was being born, right? A baby was being born. And he thought about it because this delivery room was right in the middle of a major city, and it was during rush hour. And as he sat there and he peered out the window, he talked about how all the world was rushing past. It was 1,000,001 people moving around, busy about their day. He says, but it was only a couple people in that room. And he thought about how all these people were missing the greatest miracle that humans have the opportunity to participate in, which is the creation and the birth of another life. And so I would just say to you, in this time in this season, we should realize that the more people turn away from God and the more they are ungrateful to God and are more into they're more into other things, the created order. They're into creation more, the created than the creator. And so we become materialistic, right? So people are so intent on getting more material things and all the things that the world offers. We're so involved in pleasures of this world and enjoying the pleasures of this world. And many times we do so at the sake of showing our thankfulness and gratefulness to the one who created it all. I always use the example, and people to hear me say this all the time. I have a car. And there's been times I give people a ride. So if you got in my car and I gave you a ride across town, you shouldn't get out of the car and thank the vehicle. You should thank me. I'm the one who drove the car. I'm the one who is the owner and the driver of that vehicle. And so it is with worship, that instead of us acknowledging and worshiping the created being or the creation, we should always be thankful and to worship the creator. And even those and the things that are made in his image. And so just in this time in the season, coming up on the 24th of January is the pro-life time. January is the anniversary of pro-life month. And so as we acknowledge defending and fighting for innocent child in the womb, our motto is to promote and protect the image of God. And as we promote and protect the image of God, we do so by protecting the thing that not only it demonstrates the creative energy of God, which is a baby in the womb, a newborn baby, but also that we will take time to be thankful and grateful to the one who created us all. This has been Dr. Joe Green. Until next time, peace and blessings to you. Shalom, shalom.